this technology die casting, we want to get rid of it. This is quite interesting. So if we have a lot of bankruptcies in Chapter 11s, how easy is it to get a new investor to believe in your business, invest, and save you out of the Chapter 11? So on the other end of the market, people say, hey, buy my Foundry. It's great. It has customers.
If you look at the market and you have a foundry group like GF, which is well known over the world, they're working with all the OEMs worldwide on the most complex parts. And now you say, hey, you can buy them. That says something that there is not a perspective for the future for many foundry owners about the industry. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Gold Casting Podcast. Today we have an episode that is not that cheerful because we're going to talk about the current situation of our foundry world, especially in terms of new crisis with the tariffs and also a lot of financial trouble. So, Staffan, I think we have to see and how currently the situation is.
Yes, we want to talk about two things. We want to talk about that it seems that owners of companies does not want to own foundries, and what kind of implication is this having, and we have some good examples. Another thing we want to talk about today is we see a new approach and attitude from the buying side when foundries are in Chapter 11 or close to bankruptcy. And these two phenomena that we're seeing now since summer 2024 is accelerating. And I think we need to discuss this a little bit. So hang on, listen to the end, because I think we need to get the perspective on these two things. First of all, why we're here, just a short recap. We have been talking about this many times. As we see it, the car industry is paying some $60 billion out of a production of $84 billion when it comes to high pressure die casting. So the car industry is tremendously important. And what's happening with our cars? Well, first of all, if we look at Europe, according to some statistics I've seen, it seems that from 2022 to 2025, we have pretty much 50% decrease in car production in our region, right? So half of production volume of end product gone. The second problem is those cars that are being produced, we have said before, diesel car or a gasoline car, petrol car, has something like 2,500 parts, whilst EV has something like 400 to 700, depending on who you listen to and etc. But the end game here is that the number of shots which we are selling as foundry guys are decreasing in the EVs. And when the EV proportion goes up, even more parts go out of the market. So that is what's happening.
It's not just a bit less parts. That's a third of the parts are just being used. And the fun thing is, even though it's a third of the parts, the weight of aluminium is going up per car. So you also see the trend to larger parts, heavier parts is there. And that's throughout the whole production chain, and doesn't matter type of engine.
Yeah. And then the third one, we have a new guy in the White House. Don't want to talk about politics, but we all have seen what's happening with tariffs and stuff. And it's fair to say that one of the effects that we see is investments and decisions about products and product development projects being put on hold, which is very interesting because the car makers, they actually don't know, are we going to need this thing? And if the answer is yes, still we don't know where on the globe. So this is holding back some decisions. So ballpark, trouble in our market, half volume, the volume that's still there is also eaten up, cannibalized by the EVs. And then on top of it, we have a trade war going on with crazy tariffs from left to right. So that's where we are. And then we have seen recently that Trimet Bohai went belly up, now bankrupt.
Yeah,
and then
the same for the IA group a while ago.
Yeah. And what's new with this, Fabian?
what we can see currently at the market is there is a strong shift in how the OEMs act. In former times, so anything before summer last year, it was basically like the OEM said, okay, we do have a production line there and you produce a lot of parts of us. We send people from us to you to help you get everything settled, that you can have a good output and can get back up on your own feet and still continue to operate as a company. And what we're seeing now is that the fuses get shorter and shorter, that there's a very quick tendency to take the tools and put them in another foundry where you know they are more financially stable. And I think that's a big change.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. In my former life, we were the biggest foundry to a big tier one. And the interesting thing was that we were not that big. What, 15 million euros, something. And we were one out of, I think it was 35 or 37 foundries. So that means that all these things, castings for all these LED lights, were made by small companies. And here comes a very interesting reflection. We see more and more big brands going bankrupt. OEM Group is not a small unknown company somewhere in a valley in Sweden or Italy or Spain. Trimet Bohai is not a small player. We all heard about them. And all of a sudden, these guys are now running into problems. So the crisis is not small companies, it's every company.
Also, in comparison with the small companies, they're usually tied to certain tier ones. These are companies that are directly working with the OEMs from the design phase into the part. So that's also a major shift in the size and also in the connection points, that it's not somewhere a middleman, somewhere far away. No, it's directly in the supply chain of the OEM.
These are important guys.
Yeah.
The conclusion you can make, if this is true, what we hear on the market, that the OEMs go there, they lift the tools and place them somewhere in a safe harbor, is that the OEMs and even the tier ones are realizing that this crisis will go on for a while. So helping this company is probably a dead end. They better focus on a few suppliers, make them strong, push volumes to them, make them survive, because otherwise they will have tremendous sourcing problems and delays in deliveries that will cost billions of euros.
Yeah, I think that's what the perfect sign is for an oversupply on the market. You cannot save everyone, so it's better to take the tools quite quickly to someone that is also struggling, but fill their pipeline because the volume is down as well. So there is even more capacity, even though you had in calculation a full pipeline, you're still not producing enough.
Question is how it will go, Fabian. Are we going from like 100 foundries into 50? That, how should I put it, a safe harbor, and then this development continues a few years and we go from 50 to 25, and in the end the last man standing will be 5-10 big foundry groups that are more or less cannibalizing on everybody else with the help of the OEMs and tier ones?
I think it's too hard, that question, to answer it in a general term, because yes, automotive is the biggest customer for the foundries, but as a single foundry, you can make a great living out of non-automotive parts. And depending on your product spectrum, on your business development team, you can get a lot of products from new industries into your production that really fill your pipeline. You make a great margin on them. So hard to tell in general. But the foundries that also are quite ignorant against these trends and focus on more volume, more automatization, they will have a hard time, especially with the automation. If you don't get the volume, they are highly specialized. You cannot have every line going over them. So you have a lot of expensive equipment just standing around. And then when you compare it on a global scale, foundries where no one works, you can have also in cheap labor countries. Because if it's a digitalization in the usual foundry, the ones who are able to control, program the automatization is usually the company producing the whole systems. And if they travel to northern Germany or to Korea or Vietnam or China, that doesn't really matter. If you're sitting one day in a car or one day on a plane, who cares?
Yeah, I think we need to get the picture complete. Also addresses the second question in the same sentence as that we now see well-reputed, well-known brands going bankrupt. And that is the thing that no one seems to want to be owning a foundry or a foundry group anymore. I'll give you 2 examples. Here in Sweden, we have a quite sizable company called Agas. Big family-owned in the woods, really in the woods, but really sizable foundry operation. 2 foundries, by the way. And this has been sold now to an investment company called Lazarus, and the rest of the good stuff, like the machining and everything else, is still inside Agas. So they kicked out basically the foundry operation. We heard pretty long ago that GF wants to sell some of the foundry operations as well. I think they've sold some to Linnamar over the year, and there are probably more to come. So interesting to see that high up in big organizations, people are taking the decision that, okay, we have a group, 5, 4, 3 technologies, but this technology die casting, we want to get rid of it. This is quite interesting. So if we have a lot of bankruptcies in Chapter 11s, how easy is it to get a new investor to believe in your business, invest, and save you out of the Chapter 11? So on the other end of the market, people say, hey, buy my foundry. It's great. It has customers.
If you look at the market and you have a foundry group like GF, which is well known over the world, they're working with all the OEMs worldwide on the most complex parts. And now you say, hey, you can buy them. That says something, that there is not a perspective for the future for many foundry owners about the industry. And just looking at automotive, they are probably not too far off, as you mentioned in the intro. Half the production that we had in Europe. One example, I grew up next to a plant of Audi. When I was in school, they had something like 260,000 cars built on that plant with 15,200, 300 people. Now they still employ 15,000 people, but they're just building 130,000 cars.
Okay.
So the overhead stayed the same, but the volume you can put it on is just half. So no wonder why these cars get outrageously expensive and are a bad deal for the consumer.
But this is not only Europe, dear friend.
It's not only Europe. And also when you, for example, go to China, which is the largest market for the most OEMs, you now have more than 100 new brands out there. Just a few weeks I went to China and take a look on the streets. You don't see that many German cars driving around. And if there are maybe a few S-classes and then a few old combustion engine cars. But when you look at the rest of the fleet, some Japanese, some Koreans, way more than the Germans. But then most of them, with the very maybe 2/3 majority, are Chinese EVs.
So you're seeing BYDs and Seekers and
BYDs, Seekers, all the brands you even haven't heard about, and you had to check up. And then I could also sit in a few. I sat in a Seeker and I sat in the Avatar. If you sit in these cars, I wasn't driving them, I was just sitting in them, but I haven't seen a European car that can challenge that level of comfort and entertainment there.
But that Avatar, that is Huawei, right?
Part Huawei, part Cutler, the battery maker, and part Chang'an, the automaker.
Yeah, and Huawei is actually a telecom provider.
Exactly. Makes also smartphones, makes the engines, and makes the infotainment system for that car.
Oh, yeah. But they know, I mean, if you're doing a cell phone, you actually know pretty much about the infotainment system, I guess.
Yep, especially when they were forced to build up their own operating system.
Oh, yeah.
As Google kicked them out.
Aha. Okay. Yeah, that could turn you pretty creative.
Yeah.
It's a problem that you have to solve. Yeah. So basically, interesting stuff. We see that OEMs are focusing on safe harbor to keep the supply going. They're not loyal to old brands anymore. We see a big organization, making, how should I put it, restructuring the groups for the future, for the electrification, meaning trying to sell off die casting. We also see that it's problems in China, it's problems in Europe, it's problems in the US. I would say one problem is probably the few that takes the decision to kickstart marketing and sales to try to find non-automotive, there will be so many, so everybody will try to get these contracts for non-automotive castings.
I have a different opinion that.
Oh,
as
interesting.
Yeah, so following through what you're saying, I can fully agree, but knowing my foundries, their business development is pushing F5 on a tier 1 or OEM portal. If nothing new is on there, then there's no business development there.
Is it that?
Have you ever seen a marketing campaign or a targeting campaign from a foundry?
No, but the rumor is that in Sweden, I don't know how it works in the big world, that when they're doing a campaign, they're actually placing the cell phone 5 centimeters closer to themselves while they are waiting for the customer to call.
Yeah, that seems about right. And that's just for customers. On the other side, when you look on the people they want to employ, some of them are even, for them it's too hard to print some flyers and hand them out at schools to show what the foundry world can do to find the people working in them.
No one is employing people when the news, I mean, every week you have news about a sale to a strange company or someone going bankrupt, and it's getting worse and worse. I mean, now we see the big brands taking the hit. I mean, come on. Would you buy a foundry and employ people?
No, I wouldn't buy a foundry. But if I'm already owning a foundry, I need people that come in to have a fresh view on things and also replace people that are going into retirement or leaving the company as a whole, as the industry as a whole. You still need to produce something if you're a foundry operator.
Yeah. That's absolutely
true. And especially we had it. 47 is the average age in a German foundry. 20% are leaving in the next 5 years into retirement.
Yeah, but look at me, I'm 55.
Yeah.
You're the youngster.
You would well fit in a German foundry.
I would be, my German is a little bit rusty, but yeah, but there's still some things you can do. I mean, if you're a small foundry, there's no reason just lay down and die, but I think you have to be pretty harsh. I really think so. I would say that what you're saying is, okay, maybe you need some different people, all right? Then you have to fire some people, number one. I would say join forces with 3-4 others. Take the harsh decision. Okay, we got 4 factories. We can fill 2. Who are we going to put to sleep? Yeah. Reach out to your old competition saying, hey, I can sort out your business in this part of the world for a local sourcing to avoid tariffs. So you don't need to ship things all around the world. Here's the deal. Here's the hand. But maybe you have to do alliances with the former competitors.
And I think also you have to expand that from that, let's say, sales alliance that you said we have a global footprint. Company X does the North American market, we are company Y, we do Europe, and then we have company Z that does Asia. You also have to develop together to share R&D costs and then also try out different things in different places. For example, when you want to go more sustainable, okay, you try that, and then see what works best, what gives you the best ROI, and then spread it out to all the other locations. And I think that's very important that you can learn from others and also go on path that no one else is going, because everyone else is heading in the direction of bankruptcy.
I'm a hunter. I like to shoot things, find it in a target, do your preparation, pull the trigger, breed, pang. And I would probably be a little bit more action driven. I would do it like a 2-step rocket or 3-step rocket. First, I would do an alliance, see, okay, what do I have? And at least on paper, I would take this PowerPoint map that includes, okay, the capability, the machines, the region, the strategic alliance with some other continent. And I would knock on the door of my customer and say, hey, we know that what you're doing is probably, finding a safe harbor. You have a gazillion of tools. And your tier 1s have another gazillion of tools. We offer you, give them to us, we produce, because as you can see in our plan, we had the capability, we had the people, we had the money, we have the funding, we have this, and that. And be one step ahead of the category manager of die casting at 4, 5, 6 customers. I would be very, very machete direct. I would go there and say, this is the decision we have taken. These are the partners, this is the money, this is the time plan. We want all your tools. Basta. But I don't know if people in our business is doing things like that. But I would.
Oh, be more offensive. Go do something nobody else dares to do or does. And that's one of these things. Another thing is really start to see where high-pressure die casting can give a value to other applications that haven't been in high-pressure die casting before. See what technologies can give you an advantage in terms of cost, in terms of properties, in terms of alloys. And we are working Rio casting, so
I mean, that is the solution. That's why we're selling machines while the tides are dark. But
yeah, and I'm selling the implementation, and yes, there is a big opening you can fill with that and do something nobody else does. And you all know how ignorant some foundries can be, so you have a very long time to develop and establish yourself.
I can give one example. If you look at the over-eutectic alloys, they have what, 2% of the market or something small, right? But no one is there. No one is there. You see some tools here and there that are pushed by the customers because they need it, and the designers have said, okay, we need this B, what is it, 409 or whatever the alloy is called. It's 14% silicon. It's a hell on earth to cast it, and it wears out the tools, and it's just problem. But what if you would take a founder and say, hey, in 5 years we will only cast over-eutectic, and you will go and catch and collect every part that needs an over-eutectic alloy. You will become the super expert of it.
Yeah, you get internationally known for that. And you can also find new applications.
Yeah.
Because one thing that needs over-eutectic alloys is something where you have a lot of wear. Where do you have the most wear? Brake discs.
Yeah, or staircases and things like it. But the interesting thing is, and what I'm saying, why it's so strong to focus on something that only has 2% of the market? Well, number one, it's big enough, that portion of the market for quite many companies. The second thing is, imagine Eurogas, and you can say, do you want parts in 46,226? Okay, thank you, bye. It's so easy to filter out the interesting projects. And that is a bliss, actually, to know what to say no thank you to.
If a tier 1 new customer approaches a foundry, says, hey, we want to have that part in an over-eutectic alloy, they're not doing it, imagine how easy it is for them to say, hey, go to that foundry, they do it, because you're not in a competition.
Yeah.
So by positioning, you open up a whole world for you, and you have all the other foundries that want to push away from that.
Yeah. Bringing in one new alloy in a foundry is always considered as a terrorist attack by the operation manager of that foundry. So I mean, collect the damn thing and become an expert. I mean, when you have been running this for 5 years, you know exactly how to design a furnace to withhold the higher temperatures and blah, 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 blah. And you will actually probably make a lot of good money, I guess. Just saying, just an example.
Yeah,
Picking
find your
alloy.
corner of the market.
Yeah, and be happy if it's 1% of the market, because then you can say no thank you 99 times and can really focus on what people need in that 1%.
Yeah, I think
it's
also
big enough.
Saying no is the strongest thing you can do. If you have your positioning, saying no makes you way more appealing than the ones that are saying yes to everything and struggle throughout it, because every time you have to start fresh doing the development phase and learn the mistakes in serious production. If you're focusing on things like that, you have an edge over everybody.
Yeah, think so.
And doing something not everybody can do.
Or climb the ladder a little bit if you are super good in, I don't know, some strange pump detail or whatever it is. Try to figure out, okay, what do the designer really need? Stop talking to the purchaser. I mean, he's or she is always going to speak about your price list. End of the day, price list. But what is
the key
designer?
thing is what you said is, if you talk to purchasing, it's too late. They got a list, what they have to buy, and then you have to deliver that what they have on their list. But what you want to have is your product is being written on the list in your specification, and for that you have to go to the designer.
Yeah, but there's a change here. Now I need to be a little bit nitty-gritty. If you look at the purchaser in telecom, they are far more technology driven than the purchaser in automotive. So if you're stepping into the pool of non-automotive, if you're an automotive guy, you have to be aware that those guys, they're pretty knowledgeable when it comes to properties in alloys or things like it. So they are not only priceless. They can actually pay more because they believe more in someone or give someone a chance to get started or whatever the reason they have. They're not that super strict, actually.
You see it also with some OEMs that their purchasing departments always double with someone from the engineering, that you always talk to both, which also makes it more easy to get new things in. But if you want to have a major change in an alloy or in an overall system, then you need to be on an earlier stage. You just can do the refinement there. But many tier ones, it's just PowerPoint or Excel comparisons and then pick the lowest price.
Yeah. So there are some good ways out of this. It's not totally dark. And history teaches us that every time you have a big change, a few guys always becomes very wealthy. I can tell you it's not the gold casting guys, someone else actually delivering something, doing something. So I would like to say like this, we will see more bankruptcies, we will do more podcast episodes around this. But hey, dear listener, if you've listened this long now, you're very interested, reach out to us. Shoot us an email, call us, and do something. That is the first step, actually, because in dramatic times, one has to be pretty, how should I put it, bold. What do they say about pirates? There are old pirates and there are bold pirates, but there are no old and bold pirates. There lies some truth in it.
Yeah, I think what we can definitely conclude is just waiting for your customers to take decisions and then talking to everybody else, and then until it reaches you, that's the time when the market is gone. So activity is something that counts in times of crisis, because only when you are active and developing, talking to new people, you get a view and you can do something and then correct your course. But if you're stationary, you can pull on the rudder as much as you want. If you don't have a stream of water hitting the rudder, you're not steering.
Yeah, you can to be a little bit black. I mean, I rather go bankrupt for a decision I took than go starving to bankruptcy a half year later because I didn't take any decision. I mean, then I at least can say I tried.
Yeah, but Staffan, you're one person that takes, even if you're not the physical owner, mental ownership, and there are not people that hand in their brain at the beginning of their workday, even though they have a very high leadership positions, and then just do the standard protocol, because then you don't offend anyone.
And if you're listening this far, if you don't want to talk to us, at least dig up the episode. I think it's like 2 years old now. Do we have the right captains? And listen to it.
Yeah, it's Gold Nugget 13.
13, you know it by heart.
Yeah.
Great. Because it's I actually talked about this with someone else just recently, and I realized that I don't know why it has that low numbers, because it's our greatest episode, I would say.
It's quite an impact but I understand why it has a low view count, because there are very few people that are able to select CEOs and board members.
True, but you can start in your own department and do a change.
That's absolutely true.
That's true. So, dear listener, thank you for listening in. Again, shoot us an email, talk to us, call us. I mean, we all have our day jobs. We would love the dialogue. And stay tuned because I think it will be more episodes around this, and we will need to be a little bit more concrete and maybe line up some prosperity things for you. But anyway, stay tuned. Thank you for being here and looking forward to hear from you.
And don't forget to subscribe. And then we'll see us in the next episode. Bye.
Sayonara. Bye. Hej då.